else is available in today's smartphone market. After the Fold 5, I switched over to the Samsung S24 Ultra and used that one as my daily driver for a few weeks. I had it with me on trips to New York and in early 2024 to CES in Vegas. And especially as a content creator, I was very, very happy with its camera. So naturally, I wanted to see what the 2024 iteration could bring to the table. I know that one has been out for a while now, so this is more of a long-term experience video, but I will also compare the massive smartphone to what is available right now in this flagship segment of the market. Both phones are quite similar in terms of hardware and core specifications. We did get an upgrade to Qualcomm's latest smartphone SoC, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, in its slightly higher clocked Samsung exclusive 4 Galaxy variant. Alongside the snappy CPU, Samsung adds 12 gigs of RAM and the display gets a slight bump in resolution. The rest of the spec sheet is pretty close to the 2023 predecessor. But again, we will not only compare the 2024 Ultra to its in-house competition, but since the release, we've been able to review almost everything when it comes to high-end smartphones, and most of them come with similarly impressive specs. While we are still working on our reviews for the Motorola Edge 50 Ultra and Sony's Xperia 1.6, we have already tested the iPhone 15 Pro Max, OnePlus 12, Xiaomi 14 Ultra, Google's Pixel 8 Pro, the Honor Magic 6 Pro, Oppo's Find X7 Ultra, and the Vivo X100 Pro. And I will use the data from our written reviews to put the S24's results in perspective. If you want to learn more about any of the competing flagships, follow the links in the description below. When it comes to overall styling and build quality, we really have to give it to Samsung here. The S24 Ultra feels and looks simply incredible, and while the S23 has also been a great phone in this regard, the update for this year really takes it up a notch in my opinion. The smooth titanium frame with Corning's Gorilla armor glass covering both the front and the back feels almost too good in your hands to put a case on. It is a pretty large and heavy phone, but in that special way that makes it feel dense and very premium. But you really have to be aware that you will have to stretch your fingers quite a bit to reach everything, especially if you have small hands. Apart from being extremely durable, the armor glass is also really good at reducing reflections, which further helps to focus on your content, especially when being out and about. The Ultra is also certified as lasting waterproof with an IP68 rating, but you would not want to take it below 1.5 meters and limit waiting time to 30 minutes to keep your precious smartphone safe and functional. With its USB-C port, the S24 is solidly middle of the road when it comes to the flagship competition, while both the iPhone 15 and Xiaomi 14 Ultra offer the faster 3.2 Gen 2 standard. This will probably only make a real difference if you transfer a lot of files regularly from external SSDs. Apart from that, Samsung offers pretty much everything when it comes to modern connection standards, with its own desktop implementation DeX, NFC and ultra wideband chip, and Bluetooth 5.3. The latter feels a little bit like an oversight, since some competing flagship phones are already available with the newer 5.4 standard. On the software side of things, Samsung continues to impress with its 7-year promise of regular updates, which can only be patched regularly with its Pixel series. And while Samsung's Android implementation with its own One UI is very hard to correct and grade with the apps I use. Again, this is very subjective and your mileage